Welcome to Pandora's Awareness Podcast, a place where we collect stories and circulate life-changing wisdom. I'm your host, Asher, and our guest today is Marlene and Elizabeth. And you're here because we get to talk about victory today, our theme of the week, our theme of the Friday, victory. We get to share victories. So I wouldn't mind, Marlene, if you don't mind starting first here. Just tell us where you're hailing from, what you specialize in, and how you add value to the world.
Absolutely. First off, thank you for having me on, Asher. I love opportunities to talk with people and share my story and just talk about what's going on in the world. But my name is Marlene Godsey. I am a cultural inclusivity trainer. And what that means is I work with organizations and public and private professionals, and I teach them how to do external diversity equity work. And so when I say external, I mean creating relationships and programs with culturally diverse communities and organizations.
Mm,
I started doing this because there's a shortage in the United States of external DEI trainers. We have numerous DEI trainers that focus internally on things like public relations, employee relations, microaggressions, but we have a massive shortage of external trainers. And so I spent some time creating a program to really teach professionals how to make tangible progress and go out and be effective in their DEI work.
mm. If I'd ask you, who are you being a hero to these days?
Besides my son and my husband, I think that I think I'm a hero to all the culturally diverse communities that live and thrive in the United States, specifically in smaller communities, because that was my goal. In smaller communities, we see, these big disconnects between dominant culture and culturally specific groups and organizations and communities. And so my goal was that if I could stop any of this disconnect, if I could help fix any of the racism and discrimination we see so heavily in the United States, then I felt like at the end of the day that's a good thing. So my goal is to be a hero to people that are being excluded from things and to make things more inclusive. Even if I just do a little part of that, that makes me feel like a hero.
Ooh, I like that. All right, Marlene. Elizabeth, how are you doing, my friend? If you don't mind telling us where you're hailing from, what you specialize in, how you add value to the world, and who you being a hero to.
Hey, Ashley, yeah, thank you. And it's lovely to be here with you. I'm Elizabeth. I'm a recovery coach professional. I'm a qualified recovery professional, and I'm calling in or joining you from Mallorca in Spain, one of the Balearic Islands.
Mm,
So I specialize in addiction recovery coaching. I work with people coming into addiction recovery, usually through a treatment center, and help them create a strong recovery wellness so that they can enjoy a second chance of life.
mm. And who you being a hero to, if you don't mind sharing.
Oh, as we asked Marlene, I thought, oh, I'm not sure if how to answer that one. My daughters, for sure. I'm a single parent. I've got two teenage daughters now, so it's interesting. I struggle with the word hero. I'm going to have to look into this because
Mm,
it's like I don't know if I want to be a hero, but I definitely an inspiration, an example of what is possible. So yeah, my daughters and to the people I work with who are still in treatment. I just for me, it's about showing people that it is possible. I thought for myself when I was there that there was no hope,
mm,
and I thought I was a lost cause. You know, I'd seen it happen with other people, but I was a lost cause. So for me, if I can show someone that it is possible and it's possible to maintain a sustained recovery, huge stigma about the idea that there will be relapse. It's not that. Then I can go to sleep with a clear
mm.
conscience and feeling good about myself.
Thank you for sharing. And if you maybe we can put an S on the hero, make it a shiro. If you if that word works better for you, maybe you want to be a shiro to them. But I appreciate what you're doing, actually. I do. And we get to talk about victory today because, sometimes, we don't celebrate our victories enough. Sometimes we just work, 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 do, do, do. We never really go back and measure the gains that we've experienced in life. We go back and see where we started from to where we are today or what we accomplished this week or today. We don't do a lot of measuring. And oftentimes that affects how we feel because all we do is focusing on the horizon or the gap between us and the horizon, and we recognize how much we've gained. over the time that we've been doing stuff. So if we got to start off with you, Marlene, if you want to share with us your victory you want us to celebrate with you today, if you don't mind sharing that.
Yeah, I don't have a victory for today, but a victory if
Yeah.
you're talking about in general with what
Yes.
I do.
Mm-hmm.
My victory, something I'm very proud of, is when I started this work, when I started working with professionals, I wanted to find a way to actually make progress, to
Mm-hmm.
actually be able to take the professionals that have no idea how to go out and create these authentic relationships, how to go out and work with culturally diverse communities, professionals that were fearful of the unknown and fearful of making a mistake, saying the wrong thing, being uncomfortable. And those are the things that keep people from doing this important work. And so I spent a long time thinking, well, how can I break down how it is that I do this work, how I'm successful at this work, and make it so that they can take bite-sized pieces of this, per se, and go out and actually use it and make progress. Because if we give them all these tools and they don't do anything with it, it's not really making an impact, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I found a way. I created a program, and it's called Navigating Cultural Connections. And I found a way to take people through this journey to, like, these actionable steps that they can go out right away and just use these in the world to start making progress. And so the feedback I've been getting from the people I'm working with is they're seeing a light. They're seeing relationships they're starting to create that they've been struggling with for 5, 10, 15 years in these communities they work and live and thrive in. And so at the end of the day, if I have to handhold people to
Mm-hmm.
lead them through this, but the end is that there's more inclusiveness and safe spaces for these cultural communities that live and thrive in these areas, then that for me is a huge victory. So
Mm-hmm.
my victory is really that I'm seeing that my program works,
Mm-hmm.
and it works well, and it's effective training. And so that for me is it's huge. I spent a really long time interviewing and breaking it down and starting over, and it was very frustrating. I actually took a break from my professional job and just focused on this for a year and just put everything I had into creating this program. And so that's my victory, is that I just actually had a training I did last week, and the feedback was phenomenal. So that's my victory for me, is that I made something that I wanted to do and I figured it out. And it
Mm-hmm.
was confusing and it was hard, but I figured it out.
Well, congratulations, Marlene.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
congratulations to you. Because a lot of us, we go out there and we want to find the thing that fascinate us, and sometimes we don't have the time to put the effort into it. And to see if you can imagine your life where you get to spend 80% of your life working on the thing that you love. Like we don't have to worry about like, doing something else that you don't like because of basic life support. But then if you get to work on the thing that you really love, spend most of your life doing it, then how much impact can you have in the community? A lot of impact because you're doing something you love. You put everything in it. But oftentimes we're not lucky. We're not that lucky. Some of us are trapped doing things we don't really love, and it's really, really difficult. So congratulations.
I still have another job, so I'm not there yet, but the goal is to get there. The
Yeah.
goal is to be doing what I love full time, because then you don't feel like you're really working. It feels
Mhm.
good. It feels really good.
Mm. But if I had to ask you on this nice, awesome vision you have that you're working on, like what are some of the big danger signs that you run into that you notice that you are here to put solution towards?
The danger signs. Um, I guess if the biggest danger sign is the world's changing so rapidly. The United States is changing so rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
It's changing for the better. In 20 years, I say dominant culture, but just for clarification, and Elizabeth, for what that means, if you in the United States, the dominant culture is white non-Hispanic population. And so our dominant culture is changing here. And in the next 15, 20 years, our dominant culture will no longer be white non-Hispanic population. So if people don't learn how to do this work right now, my fear is how bad things could get in 10, 15, 20 years, because things are changing so rapidly. And so when I work with people, some of the professionals I work with have master's degrees, PhDs, and
Mm-hmm.
they're out there doing work which normally should be done by somebody who is extremely equitable, extremely inclusive, and knowledgeable in these ways in creating relationships with cultural communities and making sure that everybody's included. But the reality is, majority of the people I'm working with are not inclusive in any way, and they're in a lot of high power positions where they're excluding entire communities. So that's a big red flag. And I hope I'm answering what you're asking, really. But
Mhm.
so that for me is where we're kind of at this place in the United States where things have to drastically change. Then we have a lot of political stuff going on, and it's become a very unsafe area. And so that's my red flag, is that really just trying to hurry up and make these changes before things shift into a different way that we maybe can't come back from.
Mm. Okay, so what are some of the big challenge of the people or the community that you're trying to connect? What are
Oh,
some of the big challenges?
yeah. So the community that I'm in is a very small community. So it is predominantly Caucasian. We have three abandoned tribes in our area. So we have a very large native populations. We're on very strong tribal land. So some of the things I'm experiencing here is working with people who have been doing the things the same way for a long time and are very hesitant to change. So I have a few organizations I've been speaking with where employees want to make changes, but leadership is very much against inclusion. They're very much against changes. They very much have that idea of how America used to be, and they don't want that to change. So that's
Hmm.
something I come up against a lot, especially in my community, unfortunately. But I would say majority of the community is very much open to change and welcoming and inclusive. I'm in Washington, so I am a blue state, which helps.
Hmm.
But there are people that hate me. I get horrible emails and messages and death threats and horrible things because of the type of work that I do. So I mean that's just kind of comes with the territory. And that's why I never really mention my city when I do like a podcast, because there
Hmm.
is some scary stuff out there. There are some scary people who unfortunately are uneducated and hate the idea of an inclusive United States, and a culturally inclusive United States. To them is a fear.
Hmm. You know, I think I was reading somewhere it was talking about the native population, like how a lot of them have been addicted to like alcohol and stuff because of
Mhm.
like the segregation stuff that they're experiencing. And I'm curious about like, have you seen a lot of that in your work?
In my area, no, I don't want to say I've seen that. There is a lot of alcohol addiction that you see on like reservations
Hmm.
because of the extreme poverty some of these tribes face, because they've been gentrified to these little spaces of land they've been stolen from. They've been introduced to alcohol, which they had never previously been introduced to, so their bodies can't process alcohol the same as European blood can. So there's a lot
Hmm.
of things that go into that. We have some very strong, amazing tribes here that are doing very, very well. So
Hmm.
I think that goes hand in hand with any group of people that you look at. I mean, we could go to, the projects for any group of people and see the
Hmm.
same thing. So I think that some of that is really just a stereotype that
Hmm.
we see,
Okay.
that there's it's such a poor drunk people and this and that. And I mean, I can go to the projects, I can go to the trailer park, and I can see the same
True.
exact thing with a different group of people. So those are the types of stereotypes that lead into hate and discrimination against groups of people.
Hmm. Elizabeth, curious on your side, you in your side of the world, what kind of stereotype you face within your profession?
Stereotypes I've debate is that going back to, it's very similar to what Marlene just said, actually. A lot of people see addicts, alcoholics as being these down and outs at the bottom of their, with nothing. And if you find yourself in that position, then there's something wrong with you. That you've ruined your life. I mean, I was the same, and I'm going to hold my hands up. One of the reasons I struggled to accept that I had a problem was I associated the idea of an alcoholic as being sort of the old guy sitting on a park bench in an overcoat with a bottle in a brown paper bag, with stinking. But actually, the people I work with are chief executives, high end, highly functioning, but secretly in despair. It's this idea that actually this condition, and they call it an illness or a disease. It is an illness. I personally prefer to term it as a condition. Can hit anybody. It doesn't matter what your skin color is, what your financial status is, what your sex is, what your education is. There's absolutely no bias from addiction, and it will take anybody easily. But the stereotyping, the stigma I come across really for me is that, and I hear it with so many people, that they're so worried about sharing their recovery status, sharing their story, sharing what's happened to them. And I see it, I love this topic of victories, because I see it, if you've picked yourself up in anything, if you've picked yourself up from there and achieved sobriety, asked for recovery, that's a massive victory. It shows the strength of someone, it shows the integrity. And it's that idea that they don't want to seek help in the real world because they're worried of what people will think of them. They're worried of how they're going to be perceived by their business partners, by their shareholders, by their employees. But actually, some of the strongest people I've seen, some of the most, they can be some of the most level-headed. These are people that then actually go on to really work on themselves, to understand themselves, to become a fully functioning human being in terms of their emotional side, in terms of their physical and their spiritual, and they can become the best leaders.
Hmm.
I don't know if that answers the question. That's
Oh yes,
what's come up for me in that.
Yeah, no, well, no, actually, I can feel you. Actually, that makes a lot of sense. And if you had to share with us, like, why is your work so important to you? What would that answer be?
My work, I came in, so my story is I was in active addiction for 30 years as a mother. I did, there were so many things I did in my life that I always said I would never do. And then it all got sort of completely forgotten and pushed out because I was an active addict, and that came first. When I asked for help, I went into a treatment center, as many people do, whether or not it's private or through state funding. But when I finished, and this is the idea that you go in and you have your 28 days or your 3 months, and then you're fixed, and you go out and you're just sort of, to me, it's like sending a toddler out into the world and saying, okay, go fend for yourself. Whereas the real work, it's not so easy. It's easier to stay in recovery, to stay clean, to stay sober when you're in a nice bubble, a protected bubble with a group of people who understand what you're saying, who don't judge you, who have got similar stories, with therapists, with support workers, with key workers who are there to support you and listen to you. When you step outside that door and you go back to the real world, you go back to family, you go back to life, that's when the challenges occur. And unfortunately, the treatment model that I've seen, and I've spoken to so many people, and I've had family members go through it, that you're kind of, that's it. That's the end of it. Once you leave those doors, you're on your own. And the general suggestion, it's not even a suggestion, you're told to go and find an AA meeting. Go join a 12-step. And that's great for the people who resonate with that, but not everybody resonates with that. Not everybody finds a group of people that they can get on with, or a group in that sense. And there are so many different pathways to recovery. And that's why what I do is I want to say I'm changing the way it's termed in the recovery world is aftercare. And to me, that's kind of sums it all up. It's an afterthought. You've got your aftercare and it's an afterthought, and we'll put this on because it looks good on the marketing. Actually, it's supporting and providing an opportunity for treatment centres to provide a continued care programme where actually once they leave their centre, once they leave the residential treatment, they're continuing to get well-rounded support, well-rounded, continuing to learn about themselves, to learn how to be a human being. And I know that might sound a bit weird, but I didn't know myself when I got clean. I didn't know who I was. I didn't really know what I enjoyed doing. I didn't know. I knew what my purpose was. I feel very blessed in that sense of I've known what my purpose was since I was a little girl, and even through active addiction was able to fulfill that. But I see a lot of people that they come out and they're just sort of like, I've got no idea. I've got no idea how to handle an emotion. I've got no idea what I want to do with myself. I've got no idea how to actually enjoy my spare time, how to relax. And through continued care, not only do we provide that community where you can fall back on, you can talk, and you can have that space to share what's going on in your life, but you can continue to actually grow yourself and learn about yourself, learn how to, able to go back to how to be a human. I don't know if you've ever heard, there's the belief, and I do actually agree with it, that for a lot of people that come into addiction, you kind of stop developing emotionally at the point at which you pick up your first drink or drug. And for a lot of the people I work with, and these, as I say, I've been working with luxury, high-end treatment centers here in Spain. So these people are not, the homeless on the street. They're functioning. They've got businesses, but they picked up their first drug somewhere in their teens. So effectively, you're starting life again from a teenager.
Marlene, what are your thoughts on Elizabeth's storyline?
I think that's so true. Everything, especially talking about the aftercare, I think you probably nailed something really amazing there, because I think it's so easy to stop doing it. Like you said, I never really thought about it. I'm blessed that I don't have addiction issues, but I have many family and friends who do. And it's the truth. You go into treatment centers or in spaces and you're doing great because you're around like-minded people. You're in a safe, clean environment. Those things aren't available to you, but who's there to help you when you're done, when you get out of there, when you go home? And I know, I have really good friends from college who have some addiction issues that led on from college. They got 30, 40 years old and they never quit going out and binge drinking on Friday night, and Saturday night and Sunday night. And so I think it's amazing, and it's a thing that's really needed. But I
Yeah.
never thought about that, when you go home. I like that perspective. That's really smart.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I saw some of the same things somebody was talking about, even for cancer too. When somebody finished their cancer treatment and they let them out the hospital, it's like they're on their own again. There's that continued piece you're talking about after it's not there. So, that's something we got to think about. Yeah. What other victory do you have there, Elizabeth, that you want to share?
My victory is this week. First of all, I'm going to celebrate that I've done another 24 hours clean and sober, because that is just every day I do that. It's amazing. And yesterday, I actually was blessed to be able, I'm really honored to be able to go in and facilitate a workshop in a treatment center over on the mainland for a group of newly recovering addicts. And we talked about boundaries, which is something that I'm quite passionate about, because
Mm,
boundaries is a topic that, it's a can of worms. But to be able to go and share my story with them again, and show them that it is possible. And yeah, it's progress, not perfection. So it is progress. And to actually be able to give them some tools that they can start implementing now, in terms of their relationships with each other in there, but also in their conversations with their family.
mm.
And they, yeah.
So you do this celebration every 24 hours every day? Is
I
that something?
celebrate, yep, every day. I try and find something to celebrate, something to be grateful for every day, because, when you're grateful, you can't, it's really difficult. I've tried to to still be annoyed or irritated or a bit sort of sad or a bit gloomy. And actually it's really difficult when you're sitting there thinking of the things you're grateful for. So yeah, it helps keep my mind in a sort of growth mindset place.
Mm.
Mm. What else are you grateful for, there, Marlene? you want to celebrate on this Friday?
What am I grateful for? Oh, I'm grateful for many things. I mean, I have a beautiful son, and I'm gonna use that, Elizabeth. I'm gonna think about that when I'm frustrated or irritated driving in traffic like I was earlier today. And I'm gonna think about all the things I'm grateful for. I'm grateful to have a beautiful place I live, and a great job, and a great side career, and a wonderful husband, and a beautiful son who's almost 5. So sometimes I look at him, and
Mm.
when he's being 5, I'm gonna think about how grateful I am that he is my angel, and we're gonna let that go. I'm gonna use that. That's my new thing. I like that. But I'm grateful for a lot of things. I'm grateful for where I am right now in life. I'm grateful that I finished my program, because that was a lot of work and it was
Mm.
stressful.
Yeah.
It was a lot, and I took a year off work and did a bunch of side jobs, to make ends meet while I did that. So I'm grateful for a lot. We're not promised any days tomorrow, or who knows what's going to happen, when we're going to die, if we're going to get sick. So I do try to think, life is short, and I'm grateful for a lot of things.
Mm. And if I had to run this experiment on you then with your business, if you had to travel 3 years into the future and you get to look back at today with this new project you're working on, this new business, and like what has to happen for you to be happy with the progress of your business to that point?
Oh, that's a good one. I think for me to feel really happy, really like I really made it with my business, I think it'll really depend on how many clients I'm taking on, how many organizations I'm taking on. Right now, I'm talking with 2 different organizations that, you know, um, employ lots of people. And so when I work with organizations, it's making such a big impact, especially when I'm talking about nonprofit and city organizations, governmental organizations. They're affecting so many people in the community. So
Mm.
if it's a private business, which I am working with one private business, that's great, that for profit business. But some of the other people I'm talking with are governmental agencies. And so, they have a opportunity to make a huge impact in the community, right? To change the way they do their programs and their outreach and their hiring and their all those different departments, all those different things. So then the community is being served and
Mm.
included. They're getting, the community, the cultural communities are getting jobs in these organizations. Everything starts falling into place when we start to change the way we do things. So for me to really be like, look back in 3 years, 5 years, and be like, I really did it, would be 2 things really. Is one, am I doing it full time and not working for anybody else?
Mm-hmm.
And two, what's the type of organizations and groups and people that I'm working with and training? And what is the impact that they are making from what I'm teaching them? Because that impact is really what is, at the end of the day, what means I'm successful in this or not. So that would be what I would be gauging that off of, is who am I training, who am I working with?
Mm. And what would that mean to you?
What would it mean to me if I was successful?
In that area? What you just laid out just now.
It would mean a lot. It would mean that everything I've sacrificed to get to this point, to create this program, which was a lot. I mean, I sacrificed a lot. I sold my house even. Um, Everything I sacrificed wouldn't have been for nothing. All the time that I put into this won't be for nothing. It'll be for something.
Mm.
Um, and the ultimate thing is just creating more inclusive spaces. When I was in my early 20s, and I think about, I've had to think about when I started doing this, well, why have I been in equity work so long? And why is this something I always, come back to? Why is this so important to me? And I think it's just, it's through the different experiences I've had in life. And, in my early 20s, I ended up unknowingly moving to the Aryan Nation capital in the United States,
Mm.
into the city where the Aryan Nation was created and was thriving. And I had to live there for 7 years because I was young and broke, and I couldn't leave once I figured this out. And, so I went and I witnessed Aryan Nation parade, and I witnessed, massive amounts of discrimination. And I'm very privileged. I'm very light skinned. And the
Mm.
things I experienced were, I look back at it sometimes, and it's amazing the things I experienced. I remember I was managing a restaurant for 5 or 6 years when I was there. And I had to send someone out one time because they started screaming hate speech in the restaurant. And the next day when I went to work, they had a little parade, a little Aryan Nation parade out front of my work, so I couldn't go in. Just all these crazy things I experienced, and the things my father experienced and I experienced growing up kind of led me down this path. So I want to see changes. I want to see difference and changes in the United States. And if I don't get them, I'm getting out of here, because it's, we've been looking at it, and we looked at Spain. We looked at Spain. We looked at Canada. We looked, where can we go if things don't change for the better? Because the United States is not safe for people of color, for immigrant and refugee populations, for people LGBTQ plus population. The United States is not safe. There are safe pockets,
Mm-hmm.
and majority of those are in the Northwest and maybe the Northeast. But other than that, it's just not safe. And something has got to change to make things better for everybody. It can't continue the way it is.
Hmm. What's your makeup, if you don't mind sharing?
My father's African American. My mother is Caucasian.
Okay. Hmm. Interesting. Elizabeth, if I had to travel to your location here and ask you that same question, if you had to travel 3 years into the future and look back at your journey, and what would have to happen for you to be happy with your progress, with your profession right now?
With I mean, for me, it would be to be working with a number of, I would say probably 5, 10 treatment centers in helping them implement a continued care program that is a holistic form of support for their clients when they leave. So not just sort of like, are you going to meetings? Are you going to your 12-step meetings? But actually providing them with continued personal growth and particularly recovery growth. But I think my big one is that, so the statistic is about 84% of people that attend a treatment center will have a reoccurrence. And I like that language over relapse, which is a fairly horrendous number. So I would really like to see that number starting to reduce, and starting, instead of saying, well, why didn't they get it when people leave treatment? Why didn't they get it? Why didn't they get it? Okay, well, what needs to change in their treatment to help them
Hmm.
be successful in achieving a sustainable and long-term recovery?
Hmm. Wow, I like you guys' vision, by the way. I do. I love it. I really do. I enjoy it. I enjoy hearing people's vision and what they're looking at. Because oftentimes, all of us have this vision that we want to achieve, but then there's always an obstacle, like the obstacle in that gonna go against that vision. Sometimes we gotta figure out who do we partner up with to help us avoid those obstacles, or at least transform them into something that's useful. And sometimes it takes people like you, Elizabeth, that have walked the path. And sometimes it takes people like you, Marlene, that create something that, hey, this is a plan that would help you avoid this, at least convert this obstacle into something useful. But oftentimes we can't hear them. So, I like this quote. It says, your eyes only see and your ears only hear what your brain is looking for, by Dan Sullivan. But then I also tell you that you would never see what you're not looking for either, right? If you don't know what you're looking for, you will not see it. And it's very difficult to find people that you want to help be a hero to, or help them be a hero for themselves, if they don't know what you are offering or what they need to look for. So if I were to ask you, Elizabeth, if you gotta find a way to help the people that you're trying to serve, that you're trying to be a hero to, find what they're looking for, how will you get them to see what you're offering right now?
Interesting.
I might give you a hard one just now, but
Yeah, just have to come back to me. How would I get them to see what I'm offering? I suppose it's about something that Marlene said. I really relate to that. It's helping them also see a possibility, something different, step out of the
Mhm.
fear of change, but to be willing, to motivate. I don't know if the word's motivate, but what I'm asking people to do is
Mhm.
change the way that things have been done for a very long time, and trying to them to see a bigger picture. And for me, actually, the only way to do that is results. is to see the results for themselves. And again, that's a challenging thing, because once a person leaves a treatment center, they're kind of gone. It means actually continuing connection and contact with that person. There are very few treatment centers that will continue a contact with one of their clients after around 3 months. And that's the other thing, one of the things I believe that continued care is lifetime. It's a lifetime thing. It doesn't matter if you're 3 months, 3 years, 30 years, because at each of those points, you've got something to share that's going to help someone coming up behind you, and even those who are in front of you. So, yeah.
So how were you able to see your solution, the one that actually worked for you?
How am I able to see my solution?
See the solution that actually worked for you when you was going through your challenge.
This comes back to I believe that it was, for me, it was a flash of light. I mean, it was a moment when the fog lifted, where I knew that everything that I had done in my life, because although I was, in a very dark place emotionally, my life was helping other people. I worked as a remedial massage therapist, a coach, and a Reiki master. So my purpose in life had always been to help people live a more vibrant and sort of fulfilling life. That's all I've ever wanted to do. And I realized that everything I'd done, everything I'd learned, everything I'd trained, it had been for a reason. And when I came into recovery, I took all of that, everything I'd ever learned, and I started applying it to myself. Because when I was in active addiction, it was so much easier to help other people and try and fix other people rather than deal with myself. But it was only after taking that time out and going, okay, yeah, I'm broken. I'm completely and utterly broken. And now I get to put myself back together, that I was able to take all of those bits. And so it was experiment. And I've had, the treatment centers I've worked with, the people I've worked with, are a testament to why this method works, because they are now 2 years clean and sober, or they've had a reoccurrence, but instead of being in that place for months, even years, it lasted days or weeks, and they've picked themselves back up, and they've used that experience to make them stronger.
Well, thank you. Okay, I got it now. I got it now. I got it now. So if somebody hear your story right now, Elizabeth, and says, "Okay, Elizabeth, you are my hero, and I would love to work with you," how can they do that?
Best way to do it, actually, just drop me a Facebook message. Facebook is my platform of choice, or an email through my website. I think you could probably even find my telephone number out there, WhatsApp. But just drop me a message somehow, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, and just say, hey, I'm ready. I'm ready for something different. I would love to have conversations with anyone who works in the recovery industry, who's open to starting to look at how we can change the way we're treating people for addiction recovery. And actually, interestingly, the people that trained me and the model that comes from it comes from Connecticut.
Okay.
So,
And what's the name of your website?
theempowermentwarrior.com.
Perfect. Same for you, Marlena. If somebody hear your story, we've been having this conversation right now, and they're like, "Well, Marlena, you're definitely on my list of person to talk to, and they want to connect with you. How can they connect with you?"
Same as Elizabeth said. They can go. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, heavily on Facebook more so than anything else. Or they can go to my website. It's marlenegodsey.com. And I do offer free webinars to try to give people an idea of what my teaching looks like, so that they can, make a better informed decision if it's a good fit for them. So I do, on my website, they can go on there and put in their email address, and I'll send them a free 30-minute training. They can find out more about me, read some of my success stories, and they can call me, email me, Facebook message me, Instagram message me, all those ways. So I'm there. I'm very easily accessible, marlenegodsey.com. I try to make it as easy for people to find me as they can.
No, that's good. Like the technology these days, man, it's incredible. Like we can We can do so
Yeah.
much.
30 years ago, you had to do infomercials in the middle of the night and pay a bunch of money. It was completely different. Now you can just go online.
But something I noticed too. A lot of people, even though they are hesitant to reach out sometimes, especially when they're in a place where they need help, it's kind of like really difficult. Even though I might see your face all the time, they're like, hey, you just like very welcome. Let's reach out. But it's very difficult for some people to reach out sometimes. And if you notice that, something you gotta like, reach out to them too sometimes. Like, hey,
Yeah.
get back. So yeah.
It's hard for professionals to reach out to me a lot of times. A lot of
Mm.
times they're embarrassed that they have to ask for help in this area. And
Mm.
so, I try to remind people you can't help how you were raised or where you were born or raised, what you were taught. All you can do is make the changes now, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's be proud if you want to reach out, be proud and call me, email me.
Yeah.
I said
Yeah.
DM me. They say DM, PM, what a
DM
DM
PM.
me.
Oh, cool. So Marty, if you had to wrap up and give us your biggest giveaway or takeaway from this conversation, what would it be?
I would say, the thing I like to tell people is once you exclude groups of people, whether you're a professional, whether you're a business owner, whether you're an organizational leader, once you or your business excludes groups of people, it's almost impossible to come back from that.
Mm.
So it's important to do the work now before it's too late, before you exclude those groups of people. Because when I think about when I was in that small town and I watched that Aryan Nation parade and I experienced all those horrible things, and there was nothing I wanted more in my life than to get out of that small town. And there was
Mm.
nothing anyone ever could have said to keep me there, ever. They could say, "We're buying you a house if you just live in this town," and I would have said, "Absolutely not." So, once it's too late, it's too late. So it's important that people do the work now before these massive changes that we're seeing now continue and it's too late.
Mm. Same question for you, Elizabeth. What is your biggest takeaway or giveaway from this conversation?
Uh, my takeaway from this conversation, I have loved listening to your story, listening to you, Marlene, and learning about
Mm-hmm.
what you do and the idea of, sort of inclusion. It has been eye-opening for me, and I'm really grateful to have had that opportunity. My giveaway is that yeah, it's not about relapse prevention. Recovery isn't about relapse prevention. It's about building your recovery wellness, creating a life that you want to wake up to, that you want to be present for. And there are as many ways of doing that as there are people in recovery. And it's about finding the way that works for you.
Mm. Thank you for sharing. And final question is what is that one thing or two thing when people do it drive you crazy?
Me, I'll go first on
Mm-hmm.
that one. Uh, my current real bugbear at the moment is I have teenage daughters, and it doesn't seem to matter how many times I ask them to wipe the surface down after they've been making toast or in the kitchen. They just don't seem to be able to do that. So that just is driving me absolutely insane. And I, the other one is actually when it comes professionally, my bugbear is the fact that people use words of like addiction and relapse instead of substance use. Language is massive, and that language creates such a stigma and stops so many people seeking help and asking for help. Like you said, it's difficult to reach out, and part of that's because of the stigma that goes around with this condition, which affects so many people.
I agree. I said there's just one quote. Let me see if I remember it from Desmond Tutu. He says, language very powerful. Language does not just describe reality. Language create the reality it describes.
Mhm.
So oftentimes, if we understand exactly how powerful words are, we really use them in a way that empower people versus tear them down and stuff. So definitely, I think words are very important. But same question for you, Marlena. Marlene, sorry.
Okay.
Marlene, what is that one thing or two thing when people do it drive you crazy?
Well, I'll stick to professionally with this. I got a lot of things that people do that drive me crazy. But professionally speaking, the two things that I think I really, really bother me are one, regurgitating false information, because that keeps leading to more and more miseducation and more ignorance to things in life. So regurgitating false information. And two, is not worrying about things that don't affect you personally. So that one for me is huge. Not worrying about something because, oh, it's okay. It doesn't affect me, so I don't care if it affects them. We're all souls in temporary meat suits, and we need to come together. So those two things right there are just the bane of my existence. They get to me.
I
And I
want
hate shoes in
I
houses.
want a
I hate when
personal
people
one.
a personal one. I hate shoes in houses. I'm very clean, so I can't go to sleep if the dishes aren't done and like all the pillows aren't organized on the couch. I know it's ridiculous, and I love dogs. But I hate dog fur. I hate dog fur. If I go to someone's house and they have a bunch of furry dogs and they're like, "Sit down," I'm like, "I'm gonna stand," because I don't like dog fur on me. So I have a dog, but she's a poodle mix, so she doesn't shed at all, and it's fabulous. So I have a bunch. I could go on and
Amazing.
on. I have ridiculous things that I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got to learn a lot about you, Marlene.
Uh,
Oh my God. Thank you so much, both of you, for the generous use of your time coming on here and really telling us what you specialize in, how you add value to the world, and who you've been a hero to, and really how you're really making an impact in the world. So I appreciate you doing what you're doing. And it's a good victory day. We get to celebrate both your accomplishment. Totally. Any last word before we close out?
we are stronger together.
Mm.
Remember that. We as humans will always be stronger together.
And I will make that the last word. With that, you tune into Pandora's Awareness Podcast, a place where we collect stories and circulate life-changing wisdom. And today, on Victory Day, we got wisdom from Marlene and Elizabeth. And with that, folks, make it an awesome weekend.